All right, pre-algebra, we're back for more solving of equations. This time the distributive property is going to be there, and we're going to have like terms. So it's going to be the combination of when we did those, when we had the distributive property and like terms. I've handpicked, again, 5 problems out of your assignment that I'm going to kind of work through here a little bit. And I've kind of grouped them in what I would think is the order of ease, so to speak, which ones are easier, which ones are more difficult. I kind of grouped them that way here, or I put them in that order to show you how that kind of descends. But like what we were doing on the last assignment and the one prior to that, we know what the distributive property is. We got to carry that all the way through and multiply it to both numbers. And then we have to look to simplify it. Are there any like terms? If they are, then we got to combine those like terms before we do any of the solving of the equations. So let's get to this first problem. I'm doing number 3 first, so join me on doing number 3. Okay, so we got to solve each equation. So the first thing I'm seeing here is I have a number outside the parentheses group. So the best thing to do is make sure I do every one of these problems the same way. So I would want to start by doing the distributive property, which means I need to take the negative 6 times the 8 and get a negative 48, and take the negative 6 times the positive 2, which gives me a negative 12m. Now that equals a negative 84. Okay, so now I can go that next step and say, okay, now I'm trying to get the 12m by itself, so it means I want to get rid of the negative 48, so I'm going to do the opposite there. I'm going to add 48. Now again, I pointed this out in the last video, but do notice that these have opposite signs right there. One's positive, one's negative. That way they will eliminate each other. And then I'm going to add 48 to the other side, because whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Now, when I get this, notice this whole thing comes down. This whole negative 12m. You don't want to lose a negative. So now I just need to know what is negative 84 plus 48. Well, if they were the same sign, I'd add and keep, but they're opposite signs, so I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to take 84 minus 48, and I'm going to get 36, but I got to keep the sign of the 84, so that's a negative. So I have a negative 12m equals a negative 36. So now what do I want to do? I want to divide by negative 12. Okay, so now when I divide by negative 12, on the left they cancel because I have one of, yes, they cancel. And so that gets me an m. On the other side I got a negative 36 divided by negative 12, which is a positive 3. So now I want to check to make sure this does work. I got a negative 6, I got 8 plus 2 times 3, all in parentheses. Well, 2 times 3 is 6. I got 8 plus 6, which is 14. And now I need to take a negative 6 times 14, which would be a negative 24, and a negative 60, which would be a negative 84 altogether. Now I check, is that the same as that one? Yes, it is. So this is my answer. Every time we have an equation that we have to solve, we should be able to plug that number right back into the equation, and it should be true. So it's a quick way for us to check it. Okay, so now I think the next difficulty-like problems will be like this, where we have the distributive property, but then there's something extra on there. And in this case, that something extra is a value. Okay, it's just a number. So let's go ahead and do this. First thing I'm going to do is bring down the 196. It's on the other side of the equal sign. I'm not going to worry about it. And then I'm going to do this. I got 7 times 1, which is 7. And 7 times a positive 6, which is 42m. And then I got to plus this other 7. So now I'm looking for any like terms that might be available. And I've got a 7 and a 7. They're both positive numbers, so if I add them together, I get 14. So I got a negative 196 equals 42m plus 14. So now I got to solve one of these two-step equations. I want to try to get the m by itself, so I got to get rid of the 14 here. Got to get rid of that 14. I got to do the opposite. So that's a plus in front of it, I'm going to minus. So now I'm going to minus 14 from the other side here as well. So now when I look at it, I've got two negatives, negative 196 and negative 14. They're both being subtracted. Same sign, add and keep. So I'm going to add these two together. I'm going to get 210, but since they're both negative, my answer has to be negative. That was addition and subtraction. And then that's going to equal 42m. And my 14s over here cancel off because one's positive and one's negative. Well, now I got to get rid of the 42. Right now the 42 is multiplying the m, so I need to divide by 42 on both sides. So now if I divide by 42, on the right-hand side, I just get an m because those 42s are going to cancel off. On the left, I'm going to get a negative 5. So now, again, I can check. I've got 7 times 1 plus 6 times 5 plus 7. That's right, 6 times negative 5. Okay, so that would be 1 minus 30, which would be a negative 29. So I got to take 7 times the negative 29. Oops. And I get a negative 203. And now I can add 7 to that. And I get a negative 196, which is what it was supposed to work out to be. So m equals a negative 5. And I checked it to verify that my answer is true. Okay, let's go to the next difficulty level. Again, I have a distributed property problem, and I've got something on the outside. But notice this time, it's a variable, not just a number. So that's going to be something to have to watch out for. So I got the negative 109 equals, well, 7 times b is 7b. 7 times minus 7 is a negative 49. That's why I consider this one a little bit more difficult, because I have a negative right there in that multiplication, plus 5b. Okay, I'm looking for like terms. That's my 5b and my 7b. They're like terms. I want to combine them. They're both positive. So if I add 7 and 5, I get 12. So I get 12b minus 49 equaling a negative 109. Okay, so I want to get the 12b by itself, which means I got to get rid of the 49. So I want to have the opposite of that sitting there. Since it's a minus 49, I want plus 49. And plus 49 on this other side. Okay, so that gets me a 12b on the right, because I have a minus and a plus on the 49, so they're going to cancel out. Now I've got a negative 109 plus 49. Opposite signs, I'm going to go ahead and subtract the numbers. 109 minus 49 is 60, and then I got to keep the sign of the higher number, so it's a negative. So now I have 12b equals a negative 60. I want to get the b by itself, so I got to get rid of the 12. To get rid of the 12, since it's multiplication, I need to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 12. So now, on the right, the 12s cancel off because of division, and I have just a b sitting there, and a negative 60 divided by 12 is a negative 5. So once again, I'm going to check this. I've got 7, and I need to take a negative 5 minus 7, and then add 5 times negative 5. Okay, negative 5 times negative 7, negative 5 minus 7 is a negative 12. 7 times negative 12, and then I got 5 and negative 5. So order of operations is I got to do my multiplication first. So 7 times negative 12 is a negative 84, and 5 and negative 5 is a negative 25. Since these are both negative numbers, I'm just going to go ahead and add them. 5 and 4 is a 9, and 2 and 8 is the 10. So I get a negative 109, which is what it was supposed to equal. So b does equal a negative 5. You can always check them to make sure they work. Okay, the last problem I wanted to do, number 6. Nope, I guess I got 2 more. 2 more. Okay, so now this one has multiple negative signs in it. It has a distributive property. It has something extra in it. So it's just one of those problems that I just thought, yeah, this is definitely more difficult. So let's work through this here. So the negative 9, there's nothing else over here. It's nice and simplified. Now I need to take the negative 3 times the negative 4n, and negative times a negative is a positive. So that's a positive 12n, and then I got the negative 3 times the positive 1, which would be a negative 3, and then I'm supposed to subtract n. Now remember, this is a subtract 1n, not just an n, so I can't just pull the n off. So I got a 12n, and I got to take away 1n. That leaves me with an 11n minus 3, equaling a negative 91. Okay, so now we're down into the solving like we were doing a couple weeks ago. I need to get the 11n by itself, so I need to get rid of the 3. So I'm going to have the opposite of what's there. So that's a negative 3. I want a plus 3. And I'm a plus 3 on the other side. So on my right, the 3's cancel. I'm left with an 11n. On the left, I have a negative 91 plus 3. They're opposite signs, so I'm going to subtract them. 91 take away 3 would be an 88. But I got to keep the sign of the 91. So that's going to be a negative 88. Now, I want to get the n by itself, so I got to get rid of the 11. So I'm going to divide both sides by 11. So on the right, 11 divided by 11, it just gets me 1, gets me the n. On the left, I got a negative 88 divided by 11, which is a negative 8. So what am I going to do? I'm going to check to make sure it works. I've got a -3 parenthesis, -4 times a -8 plus 1, and then I'm supposed to subtract the -8. Well, -4 times -8 is positive 32 plus 1 would be a positive 33. I have a -3 times 33, and then I got a minus a -8. Well, that's just plus 8. Remember, anytime you get minus a negative. So -3 times 33 is a -99 plus 8. Opposite signs, so I'm going to subtract them. 99 minus 8 is 91. They keep the sign of the higher value, so that's the negative. I get -91, which is what it says I'm supposed to get. So yes, n is a -8. Okay, one of the tougher problems on the assignment now is number 5. I got a -86 equals 3m minus 2 times the quantity 7 minus 3m. Okay, so the first thing I got to do is I need to bring the 86 down because there's nothing else on that side there. On the right-hand side, I'm going to have to do distributive property, but that 3m is not part of it, so I'm just going to bring it down. And now I'm going to do the distributive property. So I got the -2 times the 7, which is a -14. And I got the -2 times the -3m. So they're both negative here, which means I'm going to have to add 6m. So, negative times negative gave me a positive. That's why that's a plus, and 2 times 3 is 6. Now I'm looking for like terms. Notice we got a 3m and we got a 6m, and they're both positive, so I'm going to go ahead and add those together. 3m plus 6m is 9m. And then I had minus 14 equaling a -86. Okay, so now I need to get the m by itself. So that means I got to get rid of the number without the m, which is the -14. So I want to add 14 because that was a minus sign. So I'm going to add 14 on this other side. So on the right, the 14s cancel out. On the left, I got opposite signs again. I'm going to subtract. Again, it's going to give me a 72. And I got to keep the sign of the bigger number, so that's going to be negative. So I have 9m equaling a -72. So since that's multiplication with the 9 and the m, I need to do the opposite of that to solve my answer. So I'm going to divide by 9. And that's going to get me -72 divided by 9 is a -8. And the 9s are going to cancel on the right-hand side because it's division. 9 divided by 9 is 1. So that just gives me an m. So I'm saying m is a -8. Now I want to check it. So I got to take 3 times the -8, but I also got to subtract 2 times 7 minus 3 times the -8. Okay, so order of operations says we got to do inside the parentheses first. So that would be our 3 times -8, but they're both negative, so that's a positive 24. And 7 plus 24 is a 31. So I have 3 times -8 minus 2 times 31. Well, 3 times -8 is a -24. 2 times 31 is 62, but that's negative. And if both of these negative numbers, if I add them together, I'm going to get a negative. 24 and 62 gives me an 86, which is what it was supposed to be, is equal to -86. So m does equal a -8. So on this set, what you're going to see is you're going to see that distributive property in there, and you're going to need to distribute it out. And then look for any like terms that you can combine. After you get that done, then you're back to solving 1 or 2 step equations to solve your answer. You're ready to do these now. I know you can do it.